Welcome to the first webcast of HIV This Week. I'm Kate Hankins, Chief Scientific Adviser to UNAIDS and editor of HIV This Week. Each issue covers 18 to 20 key articles drawn from more than 500 peer-reviewed papers in the scientific literature on HIV. You can find all the past issues on our website, hivthisweek.unaids.org. You can also use the search function on the site to find specific articles or topics that we have covered. This new webcast explores in more depth one or two of the articles introduced in a recent issue of HIV This Week. We have designed it to be user-friendly, with each webcast lasting for 7 to 10 minutes. You can watch one now or download it for later viewing. And if you have a slow internet connection or an expensive one, you can download the webcast in audio format as an MP3 file so that you can listen to it at work, at the airport, on the bus, wherever. HIV This Week via webcast is a joint project between the Office of the Chief Scientific Adviser and the Country Capacity Strengthening Team, UNAIDS Geneva. We are exploring a range of ways of bringing interesting insights to you using new technologies. This week, we have chosen 2 articles to highlight from the 20 that were selected for issue 90 of HIV This Week. The first one is the lead article in the issue, and it is about how national and international HIV funding and governance mechanisms have affected civil society responses. As you know, the 3 1s and the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness have reshaped international funding for responses to HIV. The effects have been far-reaching. This article focuses on what has been the impact for our civil society partners. The authors conducted a survey of 439 civil society organizations in the high HIV prevalence countries of Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Swaziland, and Zambia. They also looked at specific case studies in these 6 countries, plus in South Africa and Tanzania. They describe the types of civil society organizations that have emerged, their relationships with governments and donors, and their activities, organizational characteristics, and funding requirements. This is an important article because until now, little attention has been paid to determining the impact on civil society organizations of the new management and funding modalities. These modalities are well known to you. They include national performance frameworks, general budget support, joint funding arrangements, and basket funds. So, what did the researchers find? Well, in important respects, the new changes in the AIDS funding architecture actually limit the unique contribution that civil society organizations can make to national AIDS responses. A scaling out has occurred of medium-sized national non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, with long, strong track records. They had previously received financial and capacity-building support through direct funding from bilateral donors, but such direct funding has been replaced by sector-wide support and general budget support. What about the pioneering on-the-ground civil society organizations that have often been the heart of the community-driven response, reaching those most in need? They now have fragile futures due to the unpredictability of funding. Further, that funding does not include investment in basic operating costs, organizational planning, or capacity development. National level and community level civil society organizations act predominantly now in service provision roles, often as subcontractors, without opportunities to develop capacity to design, plan, budget, or implement programs that are not externally mandated. Clearly, there is a need for long-term strategic thinking at national and international levels about how best to strengthen civil society's country and community level contribution to the response. It is losing its diversity and its voice. So, if you work at country level or you support those that do, if you are interested in capacity building, or if you want to know how AIDS financing, the 3 1s, and the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness have affected civil society responses to HIV, then this is essential reading for you. Our second article this webcast is about mother-to-child transmission, what we now call vertical transmission. But really, in the end, it is about the importance of preventing women from acquiring HIV in the first place. This study took place in Zimbabwe, and it compared the rates and timing of mother-to-infant transmission through breastfeeding in two groups of mothers. The first group was composed of mothers who were known to be HIV positive at delivery, and the second group comprised mothers who were HIV free at delivery, but who then seroconverted during breastfeeding. They had all been recruited from 1997 to 2000 to a study of vitamin A. It is important to remember that this was before we knew about how important exclusive breastfeeding is in preventing HIV transmission, and it was before we knew about how to make breastfeeding safer through antiretroviral prevention. In the parent study, vitamin A was not found to decrease the rate of vertical transmission. In this study, looking at the risk of transmission through breastfeeding, 8.5% of infants born HIV-free to chronically HIV-infected women became infected during the first year of life. This risk of acquiring HIV infection through breastfeeding was constant over time. What about the women who were HIV negative at delivery and subsequently seroconverted to HIV while they were breastfeeding? Their infants had a 23.6% risk of acquiring HIV by the time they were 1. Why was the rate so much higher? Viral loads are very high in acute infection, and just as in sexual transmission, high viral loads are associated with high rates of HIV transmission through breastfeeding. During the first 30 days of acute infection, the median breast milk viral load peaked in the same range as plasma viral load, very, very high. And the transmission rate among postnatal seroconverter women was 8 times that from chronically infected women. What conclusion can we draw from these findings? The 2010 WHO infant feeding guidelines recommend antiretroviral prophylaxis or therapy for the mother while breastfeeding and infant prophylaxis. These guidelines do not address this problem. How would breastfeeding women who seroconvert after delivery know that they had become infected? How could they prevent transmission to their infants during the acute infection period when their breast milk is most likely to transmit HIV? Even monthly testing would miss much of the acute infection period. Only preventing HIV acquisition in women, primary prevention, will address this challenge. This is a cogent argument for including breastfeeding women in high HIV prevalence areas in trials of tenofovir gel and pre-exposure prophylaxis using antiretroviral drugs. In the meantime, it is important to spread the word that pregnancy and breastfeeding are times of increased risk of HIV acquisition for women. Men need to know that correct and consistent condom use when they have sex with pregnant and breastfeeding women will protect their infants and reduce the risk that they may become eventual maternal orphans. If you want to know more, then please do check out these articles on our website. Well, that's all for HIV this week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Welcome to the first webcast of HIV This Week. I'm Kate Hankins, Chief Scientific. Each issue covers 18 to 20 org. You can also use a search function on the site to find. We have designed it to be user-friendly with each webcast lasting for 7 minutes for later viewing. And if you have a slow internet connection or an expensive MP3 file so that you can listen to it at work in Geneva. We are exploring a range of ways. The first one is the lead article in the issue, and it is about how it affected civil society responses. As you know, the 3-1 what has been the impact for our civil society partners, Swaziland and Zambia. They also looked at specific governments and donors and their activities, organizing. This is an important article because until now, little organizations of the new management and funding modalities, frameworks, general budget support, joint funding arrangement that civil society organizations can make to national AIDS responses, received financial and capacity building support through direct funding by sector-wide support and general budget support due to the unpredictability of funding. Further, organizational planning or capacity development. The organizations act predominantly now in without opportunities to develop capacity to design, plan, externally mandated. Clearly, there are international levels about how best to strengthen civil society's countries and its diversity and its voice. If you are interested in capacity building, or if you want to know how AIDS have affected civil society responses to HIV, but really, in the end, it is about the importance of preventing women from acquiring HIV. The first group was composed of mothers. They had all been recruited from 1997 to 2000, and it was before we knew about how to make breastfeeding safer. Through antiretroviral, 8.5% of infants became infected during the first year of life. Over this risk of acquiring. What about the women who were HIV? Why was the rate so much higher? 40 days of acute infection, the median breast milk viral load chronically infected women. What conclusion can we draw? These guidelines do not address this problem, that they had become infected. How could they prevent transmission to their infants? Only preventing HIV acquisition in. This is a cogent argument for including breastfeeding. It is important to spread the word that pregnancy and breastfeeding are times of increased risk. Men need to know that correct and consistent condom use when they have and reduce the risk that they may become eventual maternal orphans. Or, then please do check out these articles on our website.